My name is Rob Dick, and this is The Human Hunters.
Where I left off, a lot of things were happening. Herzog's body had just been found. Everybody knew that we were on the phone with him just previous to that. So now it was almost like it was a race to the finish. If Shermantine had written a letter, it'd be intercepted, sent to the sheriff's department. They would read it, review it, try to see if there was something in there that they could act upon, and then forward it to us. Any phone calls were already recorded coming out of the prison, but now they were transcribed, taken to the sheriff's department, again looking for any clue to get ahead of what we were doing. It wasn't a race. We didn't really care. We just wanted to find the missing people. It was at this time, because of being in the news, that I was contacted by an individual named Paul Dosty. Paul was a retired sergeant from Mono County Sheriff's Department, and he had a wonderful dog named Buster. Buster was a human remains dog. Different from a cadaver dog that usually finds decomposing blood or skin, Buster would find decomposing bone, which was a special talent. He could basically go find someone who'd been buried for hundreds of years, because it takes forever to have a bone fully decompose, and while it's decomposing, it off-gasses a particular smell that Buster could hone in on and find. Buster and Paul were part of History Flight. They flew 2 times to Tarawa, 4 times to Europe, going to World War II battlegrounds and finding soldiers that had been lost back in a battle and never returned home to the United States. They would locate the soldiers, the rest of the team would do a recovery, and these missing soldiers would finally get a military burial back in the United States. Paul called me and said, "Hey, I see you guys in the news. I see you guys are looking for human remains. Is there something we can do to help? I live here in California." I was ecstatic. I said, "Yeah, I mean, honestly, we don't know what we're looking for. We're trying to find grave sites or possible burials, and we're not the experts." So in February of 2012, we made a plan. Armed with the knowledge of how on the fire road the gate had been moved back in 2001, which was different from what Shermantine knew at the time, and now with the assistance of Paul and Buster, on February 4th, we took John Vanderheiden with us, as we always take a victim family member with us, to try to make things a little bit easier. Sometimes when we're searching up in the hills, might end up on somebody's property. It just helps to have a victim family member there to explain why we're there. That, hey, we're looking for this person's daughter or loved one. And usually it makes it more understanding, and we can continue doing our work. So on February 4th, 2012, we took John Vanderheiden to his daughter. And I can't count how many times either John or I had been up this same fire road looking for anything we could find. And now with the information we'd received in a map from Shermantine, it gave us a direction, gave us a location, basically a story that he told of where she was. That was confirmed with Buster. Now when I say we located her, that's different from recovering her, because we had to be kind of careful at this point. I mean, if you find a human bone, at that point, you now need to notify law enforcement. And there was some issues that were coming to light that we weren't sure how we wanted to handle that. I'm going to go into this later, but it was just a situation of where, okay, we're confirming what Shermantine said. We know exactly where she's at now. We then went next door to where the Shermantine property was, where the house was, back up where we had dug for Chevy. There again, Buster located a spot where it matched everything Shermantine said. Basically, when he said the big tree, yeah, it's what we guessed. We were at the wrong tree. We were about 50 feet away from where we had dug before, behind a tree. So now we knew where both Cindy and Chevy were located. Kind of emotional, John now knew where his daughter was, or at least believed in Buster that when he alerts, something's there, and it's just kind of okay, now what? What are we going to do next? We got to try to figure out what the next step is. How are we going to recover these two females? How are we going to be able to do a recovery? That's something only law enforcement can do. Came back. It was getting late, so we came back to Sacramento. Tried to put our heads together. Leonard's a genius, but sometimes he kind of comes up with some crazy ideas. He says, okay, I got an idea. Let's go to Home Depot. Let's get a bunch of guys and head back up on the hill. I said, no, we're not going to go get a bunch of guys from Home Depot. That's not going to happen. We can't do it that way. We got to figure out how we're going to be able to do this. In the meantime, Shermantine, who's watching TV in his cell on death row, knows that we're there, but is not seeing any breaking news that there's a recovery going on or that we've located anything. So he draws a very detailed map, basically based off of what we'd gone back and forth with Google Maps and things that he had pointed out, and then we'd send maps back and he would write on them. So he draws a very detailed map, exactly where Cindy's location was, exactly where Chevy's location was, and exactly where the well with 25 bodies is, and exactly where the well with 10 bodies is located. He sends out the map, Sheriff's Department intercepts it, and then they go up and recover Cindy. Now, I understand Sheriff's Department's going to grandstand. Steve Moore is going to say that due to their investigation, they have now located missing Cindy Vanderheiden. That's okay. We couldn't do the recovery anyway. Let them do the recovery. John and I knew where we stood about 5 days before that. We know how we got there. That's all that mattered. So on February 9th, Cindy Vanderheiden was located by the Sheriff's Department. A couple days later, they went to the property and located Chevy Wheeler. On February 14th, I called the Wheelers, who now live in Tennessee, and told Paula we finally got her daughter. I'll never forget that phone call. She was ecstatic. She was so excited. I said, Paula, you understand that it's remains when I say that we found her? She says, I know. We've already mourned. We knew she was deceased. We knew. All we wanted to do was live long enough to bring her home. And now we can. Shortly after, they notified the Vanderheidens, John and Terry, that they had positively ID'd Cindy's remains, and then notified the Wheelers in Tennessee that they had positively ID'd Chevy's remains. On March 1st, 2012, we attended the funeral for Chevy. She was laid to rest. She had been missing for 26 years. Finally, Chevy was taken home. Her remains now rest on the mantle in the Wheelers' home back in Tennessee. On April 21st, 2012, we attended the funeral for Cindy. She was finally laid to rest in the cemetery in Clements where she was taken from. She'd been missing for 14 years. The next thing that was going on was the sheriff's department had moved to the first well located on Flood Road. And they were going to dig the well located by the trees. We're excited. Something that we definitely could have done because it's an actual well excavation, which is a huge task to be able to get to the bottom and try to recover whatever's down inside a hole that has now been filled in. The Trees was a well-known party spot in Linden. People that grew up in Linden, high school days, into early college, knew of the Trees as a party spot back in the day. It was a clump of eucalyptus trees that kind of stood out by their own. Everything else was kind of flat. So again, we're excited that now that's the next place that's going to be dug. And hopefully now 25 more bodies will be found. Flood Road was sealed off to the public, so we couldn't get down there. Neither could anybody else, basically, except for law enforcement. And as the media began getting aerial shots of it, we noticed that they weren't digging the middle of the driveway where the X was on the map. They were digging off the driveway, closer to the road, in the field next to the driveway. It's kind of confusing because the X was plain to see right in the center of the driveway. So Sherman was seeing the same thing on his TV in Death Row. He was calling up, complaining, why are they digging there? That's not where I said. What, they don't want to find the 25 bodies? I said, I don't know. I said, could it be a thing where you're off again? Remember what happened up on the fire road where the gate was moved? Maybe the driveway was moved. When he was giving us information, there wasn't a cement driveway there. It was kind of a dirt driveway or a dirt road. The house wasn't even built when he was describing where the hole was, where the well. I said, well, maybe it was a situation where the driveway's over and that's the spot. He says, no, that's not it. They're trying to make me out to be a liar. Now, I got this kind of sick feeling at the moment. You have to understand, I'm pro-law enforcement. I'm thinking to myself, there's no way they're digging the wrong hole on purpose, are they? Nah, they can't be. Thoughts are coming into my head with everything that we've been through now. That, is it possible that since Cindy has been found, since Chevy's been found, those were the missing victims from the trial that they were convicted on? That now if another hole is dug and nothing is found, well, then Sherman is just a big liar. And yeah, there was only 2 people that were killed. They were now found, and that's the end of it. But no, that couldn't be the reason. I couldn't believe that. So down at the intersection of Escalon, Balota, and Flood Road, there was a media stand every day, and they'd do press conferences during the well dig. So Leonard would get the idea, he'd love to be on TV, so he would say, let's go down and get on TV. So we'd go down and we'd sit there and watch the press conference. The sheriff's department would do their press conference with the public relations officer every day saying, okay, we're digging the well, we've only gotten this far down, we haven't found anything. When we get to the bottom, we'll let you know what's down there. At the same time, we're on the other side doing our own press conference saying, they're digging the wrong spot. They're digging the wrong hole. Sheriff's Department would then counter saying, they don't know what they're talking about. We're the professionals. We know what we're doing. We're digging the right spot. We would then counter with, okay, well, look at the map. Here's where they're digging. Here's where the X is. You explain it. A few more days went by, just this back and forth. Wes decides to call. He's pissed. He says, they're just playing games. He says, they want to play games. Let's play games. I'm going to tell you what they're going to find in that hole. If they don't want to dig the well with 25 bodies, I'll tell you what they're going to find in that hole. Let's do this. Let's record it. Let's put it out to the media. So that way we know, and they know, what was there before they got there, to the bottom. He said, all right, what do you got? Sherman says, well, if they don't want to dig the well with 25 bodies, what they're going to find in the well that they're digging, which is a separate well, they're going to find 3 women and a baby. We put that out to the media. Just days later, Sheriff's Department started finding bone fragments. Now today, I gotta say that I wasn't very comfortable saying this, but today, I'll say it. I believe that well dig was almost a purposeful destruction of evidence. I mean, the machinery that was used to dig that well, the way that it was dug, that's not the way to do it. It's not standard. It's not standard by any law enforcement standards. And basically, everything that was in the bottom of that well was crushed. They recovered over 1,000 bone fragments that they were able to put back together and basically through DNA confirm that there was 3 women and a baby that were in that well. You know, you can't use an excavator and heavy equipment to dig a well without destroying what's down there. A lot of the recovery photos were shown on TV. Things that probably shouldn't have been made public. Things that the victim's mother saw what she believes was her daughter's jacket, with something sticking out of it. Later to be found out that it was her remains. The entire operation was just horrible. Who was identified in that well? One was Joanne Hobson. Joanne Hobson was the supposed runaway. It had stayed a runaway report with San Joaquin County Sheriff all the way back to when she first went missing. Her mother, Joan Shelley, had gone to the trial and had heard firsthand from Shermantine when he spouted off on the stand that Lauren had killed her and put her in the boneyard. She was found inside that well. Another female by the name of Kimberly Billy was found inside the well. Now, Kimberly Billy was a person that I had on the list of the possible connected cases. However, she was missing in December of '84, which was actually before I kind of started focusing. I had kind of went with Chevy in '85 forward, and now here's someone that's found even farther back. The third subject is an unidentified female. Shermantine has said that she was a black pregnant female. She was a prostitute, supposedly located or taken from Wilson Way in Stockton, taken out to the well. This may be hard to hear, but the baby was cut out, thrown inside the well, and then she was shot in the head and dumped inside the well. To this day, she's never been identified. And there's a lot of questions surrounding that recovery still. And what else was found in there? Leonard got frustrated and come up with the idea that we ought to just talk to CDC and get corrections and parole, and let's see if we can get them to get Shermantine off of death row, take him out, and have him just point out where to dig. I mean, obviously there was a discrepancy between these two wells, and, just have him stand and say, hey, dig here. There's going to be this many bodies. It was at this time that Sheriff Steve Moore learned of this and went out publicly and made a stand against it. He actually got it stopped. Everything that we'd gotten put in motion. He made a public appeal and said that he was the sheriff of that county and he had to protect his citizens and not allow a serial killer to come to that county. Now, I came from law enforcement. That's probably the biggest red flag I've ever seen. This happens all the time. CDCR, corrections, that's what they do. They move prisoners. Heck, Charles Manson didn't die inside a prison. When he got sick, he got transferred to a hospital. He was guarded. That's what they do. They take people out of the prison. They take them to doctor's visits. Sometimes they do take people that are either in trial or convicted out to possible sites where a victim was located after that visit, and they solve cases. That's what they do. They manage prisoners. Quite honestly, Shermantine's not going to do anything surrounded by guards out there in the field. I'd actually be more concerned that somebody like maybe John Vanderhyde might not take him out from a opposing hill or something. Shermantine's not going to be able to do anything with CDC all around him. So that was a problem. We got some assistance from Assemblywoman Kathleen Galgiani. Kathleen had always been a voice for victims. She had been involved in this case for many years. She fought to keep Herzog from being paroled back to San Joaquin County. Ended up eventually getting him paroled just outside the prison wall. She was able to get the governor to put up reward money for many missing people. Missing persons that now had a reward for people to come forward and give tips and hopefully solve missing persons cases. She actually was able to write a bill and get the governor to sign it for the FBI to remove Shermantine from San Quentin and be taken out there to stand and show where to dig. Kathleen had a personal connection to these cases. Her cousin, Dina McCann, went missing December 7th, 1981. She was last seen in Sacramento, visiting a friend. She never made it back to Stockton. There was always a question, was Dina part of this case? Was she involved as a missing victim from either Shermantine or Herzog or anybody else connected to them? Granted, there was some issues with that theory. Shermantine and Herzog would have been 14 and 15 back then. Awful young. But Shermantine had told me that at age of 12, they were running the streets, stealing cars, doing all kinds of things. So I don't know. Are they connected or not? Still part of the mystery. So she was able to get the FBI to remove Shermantine, take him out to their property in 2012 after they had finished that original well dig. And Shermantine again confirmed the middle of the driveway and several other places on the property where, according to him, there were other spots. Wells that contained 10 or 12 people. Wells that contained 7 to 8 people. He said, don't hold me to the exact numbers. All I know is that the holes kept filling up and we kept going to other holes. And when I say holes, what I'm talking about is these are hand-dug wells back from the 1800s where 2 people would dig about a 5 foot by 6 foot well, about 40 feet down, hit the water by hand. That well would run for maybe a month or two, dry up. They'd go over 50 feet or 100 feet, dig another one. So they were all over this area. Now, most of these have since been filled in. When someone today would get the property, first thing that would happen is they identify these holes or wells, and they'd fence them off. They wouldn't want their cattle or family members or anybody else falling in them. And then slowly they'd just fill them in to where they weren't there anymore. So Shermantine located several places where, according to him, there was open wells where people had been dumped in them. Shermantine's taken back to death row. Next thing that happens is the FBI starts their dig. Now, at this point, we're just overjoyed. I mean, it was kind of the point where, okay, I could accept small town politics, possibly a sheriff or somebody in the department being corrupt, interfering with everything that's been going on. But now the feds have it. Now they're going to take it over. Technically, it's their jurisdiction. We're talking about serial killers and kidnappings. So technically they should. And then we see the news. They dig probably 150 yards completely away from any place that Shermantine had pointed out. Now at this point, I don't know what to think. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy person. I'm just at a loss. I don't know what to say about the fact that now a federal agency is digging in the wrong place. I don't get it. Shermantine's seen it on the news. He's calling. He's pissed off. He says, what are they doing? He's like, you got to record me and put it out to the news. We're not going to find anything there. I mean, I didn't even point that spot out. What are they doing digging there? When we asked those questions to the FBI, they said, we have our own information, and when this is over with, we'll explain why we dug here. They dug, and dug, and dug, and just like Shermantine said, nothing was found. Nothing was found, and we never got an explanation as to why they dug there. The one thing that did happen is they came out and said that Shermantine was now no longer trustworthy, and that his information would not be listened to anymore unless there was something else that corroborated it. And basically, the case was now going to be closed. There wouldn't be any other dig. Now, our biggest problem with that is that, I mean, I hate to say it, but at that point in time, he really hadn't lied to us. You know, there was the discrepancy of time changing, things being moved from when he was out, and now he's been inside, been in prison for all this time. But without his direction, I mean, he led us right to Cindy. He led us right to Chevy. He explained who was going to be found in the well that they did dig. He explained the well with 25 bodies that to this day has never been dug. I mean, my biggest problem is even going back to the original map where he gives 4 locations. He gives Cindy's location, he gives Chevy's location, he gives a location with a well that supposedly has 25 bodies, he gives a location with a well that has 10 bodies. I mean, if you're the investigator and you're doing this recovery, and you find Cindy where he said, Chevy where he said. I get there's a discrepancy in that one well, but you still find 3 bodies and a fetus. Wouldn't you be obligated to dig that 4th spot? Well, to this day, that's never been dug. So after this all subsides and the recovery's done as far as the well, it's put back. The FBI is gone now. That scene's all put back to normal. Made a trip back out there. Talked to the owner of the house that's at the end of that driveway. I knocked on the door, and I'd talked to him before. I'd been out there way before the digs, trying to follow up with information that Sherman was pointing out, trying to figure out where these spots were. This time was a little bit different. I knocked on the door. He answered the door. He just shook his head. He said, "You can't be here." I said, "What do you mean I can't be here?" He says, "I was told if you guys show up or you come back around, I got to call the sheriff's department." I said, "Why? For knocking on your door?" You just don't get it. I got to live here. You just can't be here. I said, "Look, it's not a crime to knock on your door. If you want me to leave, I'll leave. I'll leave the property. You know, if you are asking me to leave, I'll leave. But we're just trying to locate people that haven't been found." He says, "Yeah, I can't deal with this. You got to go." So I went back out to the car. This time we had Joan Shelley with us, Joanne's mom. I said, Joan, can you go talk to him and see if maybe we can convince him that, you know, we need to be here. We need to figure out the discrepancies of these other wells and possibly other remains to be found. She went up and talked to him, pleaded with him, said that, you know, her daughter was found in his front yard. We got to recover the missing people. We got to give closure to everybody else. He agreed. I mean, nothing against him. I get it. If he's being told by somebody to not let anything else happen, not have anything else recovered, I mean, I get that. So he says, "All right, look, I'm going to go back inside, watch TV, and whatever happens, happens. I don't know you guys are here. I don't know anything about it." Fair enough. So we get out Buster. Paul runs Buster, and Buster alerts right on the driveway. Exactly the spot where Sherman said. We go out into the field. He locates several other places. Again, exactly like Sherman said. Take soil samples, send them off to Oak Ridge Laboratories, the body farm. Confirmed human decomposition of the soil. At this point, we're 100%. But now what? Next time on the Human Hunters, we'll dig into some of the conspiracy issues, some of the things that were huge red flags and things that didn't make sense, and the possibility now that there are other killers. Possibly other individuals involved besides Wes Sherman and Lauren Herzog. Again, if you have any information, please contact the Human Hunters.